Welcome to the Numerology Podcast. I am your host, Novalee. I'm a professional numerologist and writer. And in this podcast, we're just going to nerd out. Which means we're going to talk names, we're going to talk numbers, numerology, astrology, the connections between the different esoteric fields. We'll do case studies. If you have numbers that are following you around, showing up everywhere, we're going to talk about those. But today, we're going to talk about Mercury retrograde, because if your calendar is mixing up the times and dates for your plans, and maybe you've even had to mourn the sudden passing of a phone or other mechanical apparatus, that's because it's here again. Mercury is heading backwards from February 17th to March 10th. That's why you're getting these tips and tools for navigating the waters a little bit early. Maybe you've already felt the shadow of Mercury, and communication in all its forms has been distorted, leading to misunderstandings, confusion piling up. That's because Mercury is the planet that rules communication in all its forms: speech, writing, information, technology, money, systems, contract, transport, travel, coordination, ideas, and business. So these are all areas that can be challenging to move forward in when their ruler has decided to take inventory and spend some time looking back. Now, Mercury also rules the sun sign of Virgo and Gemini and the base number 5. So if you have these signs in your astrology chart, or were born on the 5th, the 14th, or the 23rd in any month, or the digit sum of your birth year is 5, like 1985, then you might feel the influence of this retrograde period more intensely. Now, Mercury is also connected to your body's central nervous system. While we mostly talk about Mercury as a ruler of the communication that takes place outside of your body, it can be helpful to pay attention to any anxiety or old thought patterns that resurface in this period. Your brain interprets and sorts all the information that your nervous system picks up on. And when communication pathways gets blocked or confused, the brain suddenly doesn't have all the information it needs to analyze a situation and choose the best response. Be patient with yourself. The impulses that show up and anything that feels counterintuitive, you might have to sit with a decision or an emotional challenge for a bit until it unravels itself for you. Now, a little tip for business in this period, because Mercury will be retrograde in Pisces and Aquarius, you will be inclined to evaluate your dreams and the innovative changes you want to make for your business before you implement anything. It is the small, everyday transactions and meetings that get affected the most when Mercury is in retrograde. Since it's all the little details that in the long run snowball into something that generally trips you up, it's imperative to pay extra attention to the details of any agreements or transactions that come up. It means triple checking plans, confirming details, read the fine print, or wait on signing up for anything that shows up in your inbox during this period. And I have a little pro tip here. Reframe any negative thoughts that come up during this period. Any emotions that are ready to be released or brain pathways that are ripe for reprogramming will appear now. Know that Mercury is here to do you a favor by decluttering your life, even if it feels like it's trolling you 6 ways from Sunday. Now, any relationships that were started during a retrograde period will often be tested during the next one. And the last Mercury retrograde we had was October 31st through November 20th, 2019. So this is a time to clear confusion and move on with clarity and renewed faith in the future. Make sure you're both on the same page and understand what the other person needs. Now, if you've never heard about the love language test, or you've never read anything that Marshall Rosenberg has written on nonviolent communication, these are excellent sources if you want to expand your tools of clear and effective communication. And that goes for your romantic relationships and your friends and your coworkers and career. Now pay attention to everything that resurfaces in your life right now. See if it's time to rewind, reinvent, rediscover, recover, reread, realign, relearn, research, redecorate, release, or recommit to anything that pops up. Now, I would also say it's the time to get rid of excess baggage. So Mercury might break your belongings or even make them suddenly disappear if you're overdue for an upgrade. Now, instead of getting overly protective and buying a kryptonite lock for your bike helmet, spend your energy on releasing and expanding. This means decluttering, cleaning out your spaces, cleaning out your head, resetting boundaries, deleting, unsubscribing, unfollowing, and disengaging from people, places, and platforms that no longer serve you and bring you joy. Make space for better things by getting rid of the old. Make sure you don't cop out on this by falling into the trap of organizing things, by just moving the piles around or storing it differently. Now, this is also a great time to reframe your year. I know 2020 seems to have just begun, but this retrograde period is giving you a chance to slow down, take stock, and dwell on the ways you've expanded and explored the areas that Mercury rules. It's helpful to not look for failures or successes, but more for areas of growth and challenge. When looking at communication in all its shapes, how have you expressed your truth since the beginning of this year? Where have you stepped up or protected yourself by stepping aside? What are the ways you have grown and authentically shown up in line with your essence and wishes for the future? Now, this is the Numerology Podcast, and I have a note on name change and Mercury in retrograde, because this is a question I get all the time. Should you wait? Should you postpone a name change until after Mercury goes direct? And this depends on, did the idea of a name change suddenly pop up, or is it something that predates this retrograde period? Now, if you suddenly got inspired to book a session during Mercury's backward move, I would take a breath. Projects, ideas, and plans made before a retrograde period, you can work on those, you can follow through. New ideas, partners, policies, anything like that, they should be put on the back burner until at least a week after Mercury heads back in forward motion. So it doesn't mean you can't move forward, but I would take it, a breath at a time, a moment at a time. And maybe if you need to file papers, do it after Mercury is going direct, simply because, everyone else is feeling it too. Now, remember to breathe and laugh. If nothing else, Mercury in retrograde is here to show us that the majority of the control we think we have over our lives is an illusion. When things don't work out or you show up 3 hours late to a meeting, it's the best test of your ability to relax the perfectionistic idea that you have of how it's supposed to be. If you enjoyed this episode of the Numerology Podcast, share it with someone you know who might like a guide to Mercury in retrograde, because we can all need a little help during the next few weeks. And you can always find me, Novalee Wilder, at novaleewilder.com.